Hey everyone, there's a news item that broke just a few hours ago today on Wednesday that is massive. It is a massive story. And I think most people are going to scroll right past it without understanding how big it actually is. Okay, so here's the headline. Let me pull this up here. The headline is UAE halts trade ties with Iran and says it was targeted with missiles. Okay, so the UAE halting trade ties. And let's just take a look at at the top detail of the story. The United Arab Emirates said it is halting all trade and financial transactions with Iran, increasing economic pressure on the Islamic Republic soon after accusing Iran of launching ballistic missiles toward the Emirates. Okay, now why is this so massive? What's so massive about it? That's what we're going to get into. On the surface, it reads just like another Gulf tension story. Iran fired some missiles. This is one of the Gulf states is upset. The UAE is upset. They're cutting ties. We've seen headlines like that before, but I want to explain why this is different. That's what this video is about. Why this move right here actually matters more than almost anything else that's happened on all of the economic pressure front against Iran in this war. Yes, that's what I'm arguing. And I want to connect it to what Scott Bessent said just, what was it, about a week ago or 5 days ago or so, right? We probably saw this headline. Yeah, here it is. August 14th. Bessent says U.S. to apply measures never seen on Iran. I made a video about it, how Scott Bessent was saying that next week, that's now, that next week there's going to be some massive moves that are going to, be bigger economic pressure than anything we've ever seen. And we're all kind of waiting for the headlines. And maybe this is related. That's, I think they're connected. So let's start with what the UAE actually announced. The Emirati Foreign Ministry said that they're halting, as I read to you, all trade and financial transactions with Iran. They're not just tightening sanctions enforcement. This isn't like just condemning an attack. Oh, you struck us. They are cutting off all trade and financial transactions. So what does that mean? And this came just hours after President Trump had a direct call with the Emirati ruler. Here we go. It's unclear if the United States played a role in the Emirates' decision to halt trade with Iran. The announcement came hours after a call from President Trump to the Emirati ruler, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. And then it also says here at the end, in a call on Tuesday, that's yesterday, Secretary of State Rubio and the Emirates' National Security Advisor, Sheikh Tahnoun bin Zayed, discussed U.S.-UAE coordination to hold Iran and its terrorist proxies accountable for ongoing attacks, according to State Department spokesman Tommy Pidgeot. Okay, so we're talking about some increased level of coordination. Trump is talking to MBZ. Rubio is talking to the Emirates National Security Advisor, and then boom, along comes this announcement. And I still haven't explained to you how massive this announcement is. Now, here's so people are going to miss this because they don't understand what the UAE is, what it actually is to Iran. Okay? So let's take a deep breath, get something to drink, sit down, and here we go. The UAE is not just a random trading partner with Iran. It's not just another trading partner. Dubai has been Iran's main artery to the global economy since the 1970s. Okay, it's 50 miles across the Gulf, and the UAE has functioned for decades as basically a free port for Iranian trade, even while the rest of the world would sanction Tehran into the ground. The UAE would facilitate their trade. You might wonder why they do this. The UAE does it because they have a lot to gain financially, and it gives them a lot of centrality to how currency moves in the region. They don't want to give that up, and Iran is the biggest economy there. Now, in 2024 alone, 2024, trade between the UAE and Iran was worth roughly $28 billion. And the UAE was actually Iran's largest source of imports. The UAE was Iran's largest source of imports because they're using the UAE ports. There's a whole Iranian merchant community, a big Iranian merchant community living in the UAE, in Dubai, tens of thousands of Iranian-owned businesses. But it's not just trade in goods. That's actually the smaller part of the story. The real story is how Iran moves money through the UAE. And once you understand this, you'll understand why when it's said in this story that they're halting, that the UAE announced that they're halting trade and financial transactions. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. I have to make a video about it. And it's much bigger than it sounds. So there are basically 4 or 5 different channels here. Number one is something called Hawala. Hawala is a fascinating network. These are informal money brokers, and you've got them in Tehran's Firdausi exchange district, and you've got their counterparts in Dubai. And here's the part that people don't understand about the movement of money in this network. No money actually crosses the border. None. Let me give you an example of how this actually works. Hawala, that's what it's called. Say someone in Tehran needs $100,000 to show up in Dubai, maybe to pay a supplier, maybe to move it onward out of Dubai somewhere else. Okay, they want money to move from Tehran to the UAE, so then it can go freely out into the world, right? Because the UAE is a friendly country to everybody. So what does he do? What does this guy do? He walks into a broker's office in the Firdausi exchange district in Tehran. He hands over the equivalent of $100,000 in Iranian rials in cash right there on the spot. That broker then picks up the phone and calls his counterpart in Dubai. And he says, pay out $100,000 to this person. And within about 48 hours, someone in Dubai will hand over $100,000 in cash or deposit it into an account to whoever was supposed to receive it. But the money never transfers from Tehran to Dubai. It's just someone in Dubai making a payment. There's no wire transfer. There's no bank transaction at all. Nothing crosses a border, so nothing can show up on anyone's radar. There's nothing to track. The money that was collected in Tehran stays there in Tehran with the Iranian broker. The money that got paid out in Dubai comes out of the Dubai broker's own reserves. Okay, so how do the two brokers settle up with each other? How does the $100,000 get paid? How does it get transferred? They don't move cash back and forth every time. They let it net out over time through trade. So the Tehran broker owes the Dubai broker now. So that debt gets settled the next time there's a shipment of goods going the other way, say electronics or car parts headed into Iran, and the invoice on that shipment will absorb the difference. Multiply that by thousands of transactions a month, and the books balance out through trade flows instead of bank transfers. So there's no money trail. There's no paper trail on money. That's the whole trick. There's no transaction for a bank or a regulator who's watching the flow of money ever to see, because there is no flow of money. As far as the banks are concerned, the banking system is concerned, nothing happened. Okay, this is called the Hawala system. These networks advertise openly on Instagram. They coordinate on WhatsApp. We're talking hundreds of millions, sometimes over $1 billion a year, moving through a single corridor this way for about a 1% to 5% fee. And this is used also to fund Hezbollah. There's a lot of money that moves around through these Hawala networks. Now, there was a Wall Street Journal investigation back in November. That's, what is like 10 months ago, 9 months ago, that actually traced Iranian oil sale proceeds through Dubai exchange shops all the way to Hezbollah in Lebanon using this mechanism. Okay, so they move large sums of money through this. So that's one way that financial transactions, that Iran depends on the UAE. Number two, shell companies. Now, to understand this one, you need to know what a free zone actually is. So Dubai has these designated economic zones. One of them, there's DMCC, which is the Dubai Multi-Commodities Center. And you have Jebel Ali, which is a massive port and industrial zone, where the UAE lets you register a company with minimal disclosure requirements, right? You don't need a local person to be your partner. In many cases, you don't even need to show up in person, right? And you register your company there in one of these free zones, and you get tax breaks. And this is the key part: you get You get like corporate secrecy that a normal onshore company wouldn't get because it's a free zone. They built these free zones to attract foreign investment and international trade. And on paper, at least, that's exactly what they do. They definitely invite foreign investment. What type of trade it actually is shady. That's the whole point. But that same setup, the fact that there's a minimal disclosure requirements and it's easy to incorporate, there's very minimal oversight and scrutiny over the corporations there. It's a free zone, right? So that setup is almost designed to allow people to hide who actually owns a company. And that's what has happened. And the Iranians have used this system a lot. So these free zones are full of Iranian-linked shell companies that are used. Now, a shell company is a company that doesn't actually do anything. It has income, it has expense, but it's just money flowing through a company that doesn't really do anything. Okay, so there's tons of Iranian shell companies that are used to mask, to hide oil and petrochemical sales and launder the money back into the hard currency for Tehran. So one media outlet described Dubai as functioning almost like a financial processor for Iranian oil money. Iranian oil money and rial conversions go in one end, and clean dollars or dirhams come out the other end. And on paper, none of it ever touched Iran. Okay, so you have Hawala, we have the shell companies, and now we have number 3, which is gold. Dubai is one of the largest gold trading hubs on the planet, and Iranian gold has reportedly moved through it as a way to convert oil revenue into something liquid and exportable, sometimes literally recertified as UAE origin gold to hide where it actually came from. So there's the gold also. Number 4 is the crypto. Now here I'm going to show you a headline. So here, this is from August 7th, just a week and a half ago. U.S. sanctions Dubai crypto exchange for aiding Iran's IRGC, following a Reuters report. Okay, so that was the U.S. Treasury sanctioning a Dubai-based crypto exchange called Shellbit, founded by an Iranian expat, for running what Reuters and TRM Labs estimated was a $4 to $6 billion sanctions evasion operation, moving money for Iran's central bank and directly to IRGC. They were moving money directly to IRGC-linked wallets, like wallets that were linked, crypto wallets that were linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the regime in Tehran. Now, this thing was reportedly still operating even during the strikes on Iran back in February. So we have the crypto. Number 5 is the shadow fleets. We've talked about these before. Iran runs something like 400 aging oil tankers that disable their tracking transponders. They fly flags from other countries like Liberia or Panama or wherever. They put up a flag to claim that the ship is carrying oil from there. And they do ship-to-ship transfers at sea. And a lot of that happens in waters right near the UAE, specifically to hide where the oil is coming from. And then it gets sold to these Chinese teapot refineries. Okay, so when you put all of this together, everything I've described so far together, the UAE is not just a trading partner of Iran. Okay, you're looking at Iran's entire financial lifeline to the outside world that runs through the UAE. Now let's go back to the Scott Bessent headline. So August 13th, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went on record and said, and the actual quote was, "Economic isolation like the world has never seen before." Right? And he said that would be combined with the continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in or out of Iranian ports. He called it a 1-2 punch. And then he told reporters, quote, "Watch this space for more announcements coming next week." So there was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of speculation in the media about all of this, and about what exactly he had in mind. Some analysts were guessing that it would be like new sanctions designations, maybe pressure on the Chinese banks, that kind of thing. because that, and that's what you'd expect. Oh, it's going to be another round of sanctions. And he's just, this is bluster. This is going to be like nothing we've ever seen. And here's my point. And I think this is the piece that people are missing. Everything that Scott Bessent would be expected to do or has done in the past, these types of sanctions or, going after the shadow fleets or going after Chinese banks, that's all aimed at the oil export side of Iran's economy. We think that if we choke out the oil, we've crushed their economy. The Hormuz blockade, right? Sanctions on various petrochemical industries or individuals who are dealing in oil. We saw that already a little while back. That's all about what leaves Iranian ports and how Iran gets paid by third countries. And then there's the blockade, which is preventing goods from coming in and forcing them to come in by land, which is, there's a lot less goods and it's far more expensive. That's all real pressure. But it's also pressure on a type of sanctions that the Iranians are very experienced at evading, right? The oil sanctions, they know how to get their oil out. They've been sanctioned for decades, various points, more sanctions, less sanctions. They're experts at evading sanctions. So they have the shadow fleets, like as I told you about, like where they turn off the transponders and they move the oil from ship to ship. They have all that. But what the United States can do more of that. But what the United States cannot do on its own is touch all the other aspects of Iran's economy. The other half, let's say, of Iran's economic survival, the Hawala networks, the shell companies, the gold trade, the crypto exchanges, all of that, the US sanctions can't really deal with that. But that lives in the UAE's system. It's in its sovereignty. Some of it's licensed, some of it's unlicensed, but tolerated by UAE regulators. But it all moves through UAE financial institutions. So the best that the Americans can do on their own is like designating Shellbit, that crypto exchange, as one entity that is going to be sanctioned after a Reuters investigation. That's like whack-a-mole. But when you have the Hawala exchange houses and the shell companies and the banks that are physically located in the UAE, the United States can't shut them down, but the UAE can. The UAE can shut the door. Think of it this way. They can shut the front door, right? They can issue this one administrative order that hits the exchange houses, the free zones, the banks. That's categorically different from anything that the Americans can do, right? The UAE has a different type of power over the Iranian economy. That's my point. Now, if it holds, if they actually do this, if they actually do what they're threatening here, right? What was the language in the New York Times again? Right? It was from the opening line. The UAE said it's halting all trade and financial transactions with Iran. All trade and financial transactions. Question is, do they mean it? If it holds, if they mean it, if it's along the lines of what I'm describing, this single move does more to cut off Iran's actual cash lifeline than pretty much anything the Americans can do, including the Hormuz blockade, in my opinion. So when I look at the timing here, let's look at the timing. Bessent makes his declaration on the 13th, a week ago. And he's telling everyone to watch for something massive coming next week. And meanwhile, a few days before Bessent's announcement, we have the sanctions on Shellbit, which is a crypto exchange, which is one of the ways that Iran moves money or gets access to money, right? So you have that. And now we have the UAE's announcement coming hours after a direct call from Trump to the Emirati leadership. I don't think you have to be a conspiracy theorist to say the coordination is obvious. Now, to be fair to the reporting, the New York Times itself says that it's unclear whether the U.S. played a role, right? The UAE does have its own reasons to want to do this. It's not just that this isn't just the U.S.'s way of doing things, but it sure looks a lot like there's coordination here. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But yeah, again, the timing makes it very hard to see this as a coincidence. Now, I want to be fair here because I don't want to overstate this. I'm saying that this is massive, but there's one big caveat here. There's prior reporting from Iran International on an earlier UAE crackdown on Iranian-linked money changers, and even that partial crackdown didn't fully stick. Right? These Hawala networks are informal by design. And the Gulf states have historically threatened to shut them down, but not really shut them down. They only go so far, then they pull back. So this declaration by the UAE is very serious, and it's a real structural threat to the regime in Tehran. But whether the UAE actually enforces it, against the Hawala shops, the money changers, all of that, versus just the formal bank-to-bank and customs trade, that's the thing, that we have to watch. Like how far is the UAE actually going to go with this declaration? But here's the bottom line. If there's any truth to this declaration, if the UAE actually follows through on shutting down not just container shipments, but the exchange houses, the shell companies, the gold trade, the crypto infrastructure, then you're talking about tens of billions of dollars a year in Iranian revenue at risk. And you're talking about severing what is by a wide margin Iran's principal lifeline to hard currency. Okay, that's again, it's not something that even years of American sanctions on individual entities has ever been able to accomplish. Because again, Washington was always, their sanctions on Iran always had to do with oil and playing whack-a-mole from the outside, basically. So that's why I think this headline is much bigger than most people realize. We're going to keep watching this one closely, but this is not a static situation. And I'm sure there's going to be updates in the days to come. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, interesting, helpful, please share it with someone. That's the best thing you could do to help me. Drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of this. And please make sure that you're subscribed not only to this channel, but go over to Israel 365 News YouTube channel. We just posted another great interview yesterday with David Daoud of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. You don't want to miss the content we're putting up there. Make sure that you're subscribed there as well. And yeah, stay in touch. Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching.